Hello, my name is Keisha.
And my is Amanda.
Bon dia, good morning.
Hi everybody, my name is Jad and this is Charlotte.
Hello. Many greetings to all of you here in Louvain.
Dear friends, it's my honor and my pleasure to greet you on behalf of the students and teachers of Croatia, the youngest member of European Union.
Lithuania's population is 3 million. This number is like a symbol for us, and we have a special song as an anthem for sports. 3, 4. Pabandom iš naujo, nors esam pasauly tik 3 milijonai.
It is up to us, the people of Europe, to create an even stronger, better union which can contribute to a better world. We hope that you all will have a pleasant day and we want to remind you to enjoy this very special opportunity. Thank you, or as we say in Sweden, tack så mycket.
Η δική μου η πατρίδα έχει μοίρα στις τα δυο. Ποιο απ' τα δυο κομμάτια πρέπει να αγαπώ.
Fellow Europeans, let us all stand together, united in our diversity,
So that we can all help build our future in peace and prosperity. Thank you.
Christopher McCandless once said, "Happiness is only real when shared." And we as a future generation of Europe should work together, so one day we may be able to say that every human being on earth is living in freedom, has enough food, and is finally living in peace. Thank you.
With word and tint I did not stint. I gave her poems to say, with her own name there and her own dark hair, like clouds or fields of May.
Thank you very much.
Hi everybody, and most warmly welcome to everyone here, and especially I would like to congratulate you so you could get to Strasbourg after a series of competitions, and I would like especially to congratulate, and maybe you allow me to welcome from my heart my compatriots, namely a group of Budapest.
How would you go about differentiating between real refugees and those who are not? That could be a very long, costly process. And how would you go about it?
Believe me or not, but police activities is a kind of profession. And there are really quite good systems of identifying people worldwide. There are quite a lot of databases, exchange of information amongst the various countries. There is a clear way how to identify false passports to valid ones, and of course there are other professions at hand, linguistic persons. I mean, they can identify what kind of language the person is speaking. I mean, if you are a Syrian and you talk a different language, I mean, obviously you won't be considered as someone else than a Syrian. So there are many tools by which you can identify, not totally, but up to 99%, who is who, and then the rest, namely approximately 1%, is something what where you need a kind of special treatment. But of course, at the very first instance, and this is again part of the story, people are normally answering honestly to certain questions. Where did you live? What did you do? And they answer honestly. And even they themselves acknowledge that they are not refugees. So don't believe that everybody is pretending as of being refugee. No. A major part just openly says that, well, yeah, I heard that in Germany it's a good life, so I came to have a good life. I mean, even if it sounds ridiculous, it is so. So I don't really believe that it is a very difficult job.
Some member states in the EU, as Great Britain, have started to get critical to this union. And how does the EU react to this? And what do you do to keep member states from getting critical and stay in the EU?
I think that Mr. Cameron is not having right at all. I understand that he made a irresponsible promise during the last electoral campaign that he will reorganize Europe. Okay, you can try it, I mean, individually, but obviously everybody was open. Okay, if you want to reform Europe, why not? We are ready to reform Europe. But Mr. Cameron was not right in his initial point, saying that in a balance, it's a bad thing that the British budget is supposed to pay quite a lot of money to the immigrant workers. It was the last time Hungarian member of the European Commission under László, who clearly has proved to Mr. Cameron that the immigrant workers in Britain, they are net contributors to the British budget. Because, I mean, quite obvious the reason. Normally they are young, which means that they pay more to the common budget than as they take out. It's clear. So, in this point, Mr. Cameron is not right. But Mr. Cameron is twice on the wrong side. The second issue is that his promise was he wants to reform the whole Union, and now where he stands is just the business, what can he bargain for Britain? And that's a different story. It's not about Europe anymore. It's about Britain and his party or whatever. So Mr. Cameron is absolutely in a trap.
What is the main reason, according to your opinion, why Europe, while working as a family, consists of countries that are rich and others that face tremendous economic problems? Thank you.
True, there are big differences in terms of economic development or niveau of the economic status, wealth, whatever. Even I can tell you that as much as, for instance, minimum wages are concerned, I'm going to give you some figures. Net income per hour in the various countries. The highest is in Luxembourg, 13 euros per hour, gross. In Bulgaria, just 1. I mean, that's really attention. Everybody knows it. But this is why the European Union has created this various assistance project so that to facilitate and enhance, how do you say, cohesion policy, yes, that's, thank you. Of course, it's a never-ending story because such big differences, 1 euro to 13, cannot be overbridged in an hour's time or even in a decade. It's impossible. In the history, it was impossible for centuries. But I mean, the question is not what is the difference. The question is, what have you achieved? And this is, in terms of achievements, I think that the European Union is the greatest success story of mankind. In terms of achievements. Try to imagine that in the European history, it has never been 60 years of peace. Never in the history, never. Back to Roman times, never and never and never. And now peace prevails. And if it was the single achievement of the European Union, I would say, okay, that's already something why I want this European Union. And of course, you can enlist your wish list. I mean, you can increase your wish list and on the top of, yes, maybe on the top of this wish list is the economic integration. It needs time. It won't happen in just one day. There is something what I wanted to say at the very, very, very end. And it's, maybe you consider it as a banality, but it's not. Currently, whole Europe is threatened by terrorism. Do you know how many terrorists are? A couple of hundreds maximum. So a couple of hundreds of terrorists are able to dismantle European democracy. No, this is the answer. So my wish, my messages for you, never give up your freedom. Thank you.
Our group suggested that more investment is made in research and development of new sustainable energy. We also suggested that each country tailors the renewable energy that is used. For example, countries with hot climates, such as Spain, would use solar energies, whereas windy countries, like my own country, Ireland, would use wind power. We also suggested water counters to be used in industry. This would prevent the wastage of water. As more water is used, the bill for these industries would be higher as a tax would be introduced. This would prevent industries wasting water, as so often happens. Our third question was how we can encourage people to change their behaviour. Our group had a number of ideas. Our first idea was food labelling. This would ensure that consumers are fully informed of the environmental impact of each product that they buy. This could be used through a green light system. For a product such as one that is grown locally, for example, fruit and vegetables that is environmentally friendly, it would receive a green label. And for products which are imported and are produced in an environmentally friendly way, they would receive a red label. This would inform consumers of the choices that they're making on their products.
You were telling about putting in Ireland, like a wind turbine. How will you convince people? Because it can disturb people and they don't really like a view of it. So how can you make them like it, or how will they agree about it?
Yeah, that's a very good point. In the past, the sight and noise of wind turbines has been a bone of contention for people. However, there would be measures put in place that there would have to be a certain distance between any house and the wind turbines that would be put in place. We could also look into offshore wind farms, which wouldn't cause an eyesore and would be far away from people's homes. And you could also look into just finding places which are quite rural, which aren't near any homes, and put the wind farms there instead, so they wouldn't be causing any disturbance.
There was a unanimity in our commission. Was incredible. It was, yes, we have to keep that rights. We have to fight for these rights because we fought for so many years for it. We have to keep it, and it's really important in Europe because it's a sign of Europe. We have liberty of expression, we have equality, and this is one of the signs of Europe. A lot of people come to Europe to have this chance, this luck of having these liberties. So yes, we have to keep them. What happens if a member state violates these principles, these values? Well, in our commissions, we spoke about it, and we agree that we have to speak with these countries about what is happening in their countries. We have to speak about it, debate on it, and if nothing happens, we have to sanction it. We have to keep these liberties, because it's our values. We have to keep them, we have to protect them, but we have to, as well, we have to protect them, not just in our countries, but as a European Union. What other countries has to be inflicted in what's happening in other countries, because it's the European Union. We created the alliance to have rights, and we have to protect them now. So what is happening if sanctions don't work? Well, idea of expelling or kicking out this country can be taken because this country didn't accept the values of Europe. If don't accept the values of Europe, what are you doing in this alliance, in this union? And third question, should we limit freedom of expression in Europe? No, clearly not. We fought for so many years in different countries, in different ages, to have this expression, to have all these liberties. So even if there's a crisis, everybody has to keep this liberty and fight for his rights. So no, we keep our liberties.
Do you not feel that the freedom of expression can be the cause for terrorism?
Well, the 13th November in France, the attacks on Paris, was that an attack on liberty? No, it was an attack against us and against our, not against our expression, but against our liberty. And Charlie Hebdo in January was the same. It was not just against what they expressed and what they said, it was against what they speak about it, about our liberties. So we have to keep them, because it's a sign of Europe.
Well, first of all, the key to development is education. Without education, development is not possible. And so we have to help them to educate the young people. And this includes democracy. Without democracy, education is not, free education is not possible, but free education does achieve democracy often, because so then the people they discover their own possibilities, and because of these reasons we came to the conclusion that this is the key to development. But there are of course other points, for example the medical aid, which is very important in countries of Africa, especially. There are often problems concerning epidemics, for example, Ebola in the last years, and it's our duty to help them to fight against. At last, we have to help them by trade. We have to promote business in their countries, and it's important that they have their own economy. And the young people must have the possibility to work in their own country, to have a future in their own country. In a lot of countries in Africa, the young people, they get educated there, and then they go to French or another country in Europe and work there, because they see no future for themselves in their home country.
You were saying that one of the aids the EU should give is education, but education is not accessible. For example, women in Africa are not allowed to go to school in every country, and I think the EU should first work on that before giving education as aid to low developing countries. Thank you.
Yes, of course it's important that women get education too, but the equality of men and women needs a lot of time. You see, even here in Europe, it's still not completely achieved, and so it needs time, and you have to start. With little things.
We propose that more funding and resources be implemented in order to develop and enhance our education systems across the EU. We want to strive to reduce unemployment by increasing traineeships and the effectiveness of education in countries in the EU. We want for when students leave their education, leave their schooling, that they can immediately become integrated into the workforce, because it therefore will have a multiplier effect on economies and on societies. The more people that are working and earning, the more people that can spend and thus give back to the economy and improve economies across the EU. We need to promote education in areas of STEM, so science, technology, engineering and maths. These are ever growing and ever developing and evolving as the technology industry evolves. So we want to equip the future youth of the EU to be able to excel in this new technological era.
How do you think education can be improved in the EU, and in particular science and technology?
In particular in science and technology, I will address that part. I feel the key or the crucial part to that is that we must encourage it amongst the youth of the EU, because after all, the youth is the future. So therefore we need to encourage areas of STEM education through young people, and by implementing, we'll say, coding courses into schools, making it perhaps a part of curriculums and eventually maybe even a compulsory part of curriculums. Because that is the only way for not just selective students or selective youth who maybe have an interest, but for everyone, because eventually that is going to be a general consensus that or a general basis that everyone is going to need to be able to become involved in and to be able to use.
About the migrant flows in the Mediterranean Sea, we decided that we shouldn't let the Mediterranean region, like Greece and Italy, to face the problem, to tackle the problem alone, by their own. That's why Europe, every state of the European Union has to be solidal with Italy and Greece. And together we have to find a solution to control these flows in the Mediterranean Sea. The migrants and refugees come here to get a better life after the wars. And we have to give them this opportunity to get their life better, introducing more hotspots. And for example, we could grant asylum at the moment they arrive at the hotspots. Another problem is about illegal migration, because when they arrive in Greece and Italy, they don't want to get the registration in these countries because they don't want Italy and Greece. They want the other states like Germany, Sweden, Norway, Finland, anyway, the country of North Europe. So if we have to grant that they arrive in these countries by a legal way, so we have to find a legal way to allow these people to go in these countries and not going against the Dublin regulation.
Our own generation, and especially depending on socio-economic background especially, we also need to be aware that we don't all have to become the extremely high educated. We can also recognise that there are very many opportunities for good and fulfilling lifestyles in our countries, and where the workforce needs to be filled in instead of taking on other countries' workforces to fill in our own gaps, and then people from our own countries moving somewhere else, and then there's this constant flow, which doesn't always have to be negative, but is not quite a solution to the problem.
In my school personally, instead of being asked what I was interested in, I was asked, what university do you want to go to? Do you think there should be more emphasis on the fact that there's other paths that people can go down apart from just going in, getting a degree? I think that's a big reason why there is so many people unemployed, because there's overcrowded markets in certain sectors.
I think a lot of it has to do with humbleness, in a sense. I think our generation has been pretty well off, and of course this is another thing that has to be recognised, that it's very different throughout Europe. Being from Sweden and Scandinavia, it's a very wealthy country, and we are very well educated despite our sort of medium to low level of youth unemployment. I do think that the situation in my own country, which is where I do have the most stance for opinion, our situation would be improved if more people were willing to take on the more, say, stigmatized jobs, such as nurses in Sweden. There's a massive gap that really needs to be filled, and so many people would instantly get jobs after graduating their further education, should they choose to take that path. So yes, there needs to be a sort of mental reform in sort of eradicating stigmatized employments in my country.